Hello, and welcome to Wine with Weeda, the podcast that is dedicated to engaging with health professionals and caregivers in meaningful discussions. I'm your host, Rita Shamoon, or as my clients call me, Weeda. I'm a pediatric speech pathologist, and I am so excited to have you here. Each week, we deep dive into connecting you with caregivers and healthcare professionals, sharing their insights, stories, and key takeaways to help you with your child's diagnosis and your journey. Whether you are a parent, healthcare professional, a lifetime learner, or simply a wine enthusiast, you're in the right place. So let's sit back and relax and enjoy today's episode. Hey everyone, my name is Rita Shamoon. I'm the host of Wine with Weeda, and today I'm bringing you an episode of the topic Behaviour is Communication. Now, if you've listened to a few episodes, I say that phrase throughout many solo episodes because 80% of a child's communication, actually not even child, everyone's communication is non-verbal. And in my caseload, I work with many children that have communication difficulties, especially ones that only are speaking through their behavior. So they're non-speaking verbally. And one of the privileges that I have is to really inspire parents and help them recognize how their child is communicating. And one of the most beautiful ways is by looking at a child's behavior to see if we could put words to a child's behavior, what are they actually saying? So even reflect to your child when they were younger and they were just born actually. What did their cries tell you? We all know as mothers that when a child cried a certain way, we knew when they were hungry. We knew when they were tired. We knew if they were distressed, right? So the behavior of a young child through the change of the tone of the cries, right? The intonation told us what they're communicating. And by understanding that, we got their needs met. The child was settled, the child was fed, the child was put to sleep. Yeah. But as a child gets older, they communicate in a various number of ways, possibly through pulling, possibly through pointing, some through their own words, but many kids that have lots of trouble expressing verbally do it all through their behavior. Now, in my clinic space, many parents say, oh, the child just randomly started having tantrums more. The child started to bite kids in the childcare, or the child used to kick more. So their behaviors became quite disturbing or even distressing for parents. But that kind of behavior doesn't happen immediately. It's a gradual build-up. Now, I'm going to explain a situation. So you have a young child that wants to get to the fridge or wants to get something from the toy room. The child might initially pull you. That's behavior. They don't get a response. What does a child do? They might do the gesture with a vocalization. Like that. That's 2 points of communication. If the child doesn't get that need met, what happens? They might get louder. Right? If that need isn't met, what might the child do? The child might pull you a little bit harder, might push you off the chair, might cry. And at what point do we respond? Most of the time when the child gets possibly more involved in the dynamic or might be getting louder, and then we just respond, right? And then you get the child's need met. But if we only respond when the child is crying and pushing us off the chair, the child then learns, I have to communicate in that capacity to get what I want. So when we're looking at kids, they're not immediately headbanging, they're not immediately having a tantrum. It's a gradual build-up because they've learnt, I have to do this to get our get my needs and wants met. So when we're supporting young kids with communication difficulties, it's vital to start to look at, how is my child communicating? How can I respond to my child so they feel seen, acknowledged, heard, and safe? Now, if we acknowledge them in a safe manner, such as when they're just pulling us, the child then learns, that's simple. That's all I have to do. And then, this is the and then bit. And then if we support that form of communication, with strategies that the speech therapist has taught us, by modeling the kind of language that we can do with modeling the language we can use in that moment. The child then hears the language associated with what they want. The child then learns how to say those words. And if we do that consistently, and if we do that with many opportunities, what happens? The child learns, I no longer need to push my mum off the chair. I can simply say, Mum, up, Mum, come. Yeah. So it's really important to start to think, okay, how is my child currently communicating? Because that's their capacity. And I love to use that word capacity because if a child can talk, they can, right? If a child was able to use their words and sentences, they would. So when they say kids are lazy, it's got nothing to do with a child being lazy. A child just doesn't have the strength and capacity yet to know how to communicate effectively. And it's our job as parents and as caregivers to show our children how to communicate in their own capacity. And sometimes we feel we need to use the words and sentences immediately, but that's sometimes just way too hard for kids. We need to step it right down and get to the child's capacity, help them build the stepping blocks to get to where they then can communicate effectively. So I invite you to look at your children, look at the people around you and see how are they communicating through their words. So, excuse me, not through their words, through their behavior. And a few weeks ago, I did an episode called More Than Words. Communication is more than words. And the way that we change our tone of our voice and using our nonverbal gestures and nonverbal communication, that helps the kids out too. So now I invite you to look at your children and see how are they communicating with me? And how can you support your children to strengthen their capacity to communicate effectively? I invite you to go see a speech pathologist if you're really worried about your child's communication skills, because it's so beautiful when the penny drops for many parents, because they start to realize, oh, I have to enter my child's world rather than expecting my child to enter my world. By the child inviting me into their world, I actually understand how they're communicating to me. And I start to build a beautiful relationship because I understand how my child's currently communicating. And we build that really love relationship. And they're not getting frustrated. Their behavior somewhat gets better too. And my frustration levels aren't as high anymore because I understand my child. And once that penny drops for many parents, it's so beautiful and it actually makes the communication goals much easier because their level of awareness of how their child is communicating is aligned. And then we can gradually build up and make better goals and reach better goals for their child too. If you really love this episode, I invite you to also leave a comment and a review, or even share it with a friend who's having trouble understanding their child. And remember, behavior is communication. Take care, guys, and another episode will be brought to your ears really soon. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Wine with Weeda. I hope you found some new inspiration, learnt something new, or gained a fresh perspective. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be so grateful if you please leave a 5-star review, as it really helps the show get in the ears of new listeners, plus it takes 5 seconds. If you're keen for more strategies and insights, then head over to Instagram and follow RS Speech Pathology.